This is a long-term review of the Exodus Render cell camera. How long? Well, I got my first render in December of 2019. It was a review unit, but I also purchased 2 additional renders along with the SP18 solar panel kit. So this review is based on my in-the-field experience with all 3. Exodus hasn't asked me to preview the video prior to posting, and all the thoughts expressed are my own. In the past, I've done videos on both the Trek and the Lift 2 cameras, which are non-cellular. There are some extreme similarities between the Render and the Lift 2 pretty much across the board. They look nearly identical, except for the fact that one has an antenna. The menu system is also very familiar, with the ability to adjust photo and video options and resolutions, check firmware versions, review photos, battery life, and preview your camera's aim before shutting the door when setting it up in the woods. The camera runs on 8 AA batteries, of which I've always used lithium, either alone or in conjunction with the solar pack. Now, when you have the Render active in the woods, you're sent lower resolution photos or videos. That's right, videos if you so choose. And they'll be sent to your device at whatever interval you'd like. It could be right away or multiple times throughout the day, once per day to save battery life, etc. But if you do happen to want to see a higher resolution image, which I personally find extremely helpful when you're trying to view deer in the timber during daylight, you can request an HD download. Here are some examples of what an original photo would look like versus the HD download. And as we go onward, I'll show some more example pictures at various times throughout the year and lighting scenarios. So other than being able to send pictures or videos, what factors would be considered important in a cellular camera? Well, in my opinion, reliability, battery life, whether or not the camera seems to spook game, the data plan structure, and warranty information all rank pretty high. Size and price are of course important too, but I've seen firsthand how something with really poor reliability can pretty much negate whatever price point came along with it. So now I try to look at performance versus price as a secondary factor. Regarding reliability, I've had mostly good experiences with the renders. Early on, there were 2 little quirks that I noticed. One was that if I had the camera set to video mode, I'd only get a portion of the video length actually sent to my phone. The other was that I couldn't seem to update the firmware over the air, despite there seeming to be an option for it in the ScoutTech app, but I'm happy to report that both of those issues appear to be resolved in the latest firmware as of this February. When setting the cameras up in the field, I've always been able to get responsive connectivity in the field to confirm that the render is transmitting photos before I leave. I have it set to get a quick status report every 24 hours, even if there weren't any pictures taken, so I can go ahead and check and confirm that everything is running smoothly, even if there's nothing that goes in front of the camera to trigger it. Some of my cameras in the field right now show 2 out of 5 bars and they're still transmitting. I really haven't had any of those scenarios where the camera seems to be suspiciously cold in a good area. Now, where I set my cameras up, they're generally somewhat well hidden to try and deter theft, sometimes up in the trees. I do get the occasional false triggers, especially in summertime. But what I find really nice is that if my phone just starts blowing up at like 9 AM because a strong summer wind picked up, I can go ahead right in the app and update the camera to have, say, a 1-hour delay between photos, or even change the operational hours of the camera so it's only active at night, dawn, and dusk. Then I can switch it back to 24 hours when the weather calms down. That's really nice because I've had other cameras in the past where that type of a change wouldn't go in effect until like 24 hours or the next day. And by then your card is half filled up. So I'm happy to report that on the reliability side of things, the renders have been performing very well. They'd be one of my top choices for putting them in the more remote spots that I really don't want to go into to intrude again until I'm actually ready to hunt. Looking over all my historical photos, it's actually pretty rare that I get a deer looking at the camera. I do tend to put them up high, but not always. Sometimes right after setting up a new camera, I'll have a few deer come up and investigate or look at the camera, but I think it has more to do with the scent from me placing it up in the tree, as that activity will often die off within a couple of days, and new deer that show up generally don't look at that camera at all. I also like to have my nighttime setting set for a lower flash, though it does also have what most would refer to as a black flash, which I think also helps. So from my perspective and my experience looking at photos across these several years, I have not seen a negative reaction to the camera. Now, in regards to battery life, it's almost impossible to give a truly accurate answer here without some type of a data logger hooked up to the camera because there's simply so many factors at play. Temperature, how many photos you're taking, if it's on video mode or photo mode. But with lithium AA's, I haven't had any issues putting in a fresh set before hunting season and having them run throughout the fall. That said, I have started to become a pretty huge fan of the solar panel integrated battery pack. It's not an obvious buy necessarily because they are somewhat expensive up front. The solar panel battery pack is $80, plus whatever mount you're going to use for it. because the solar panel mounts separately from the camera instead of one fully integrated package. So while that seems like a downside, there's also a couple advantages. One is that you're able to get a little bit better external battery at 3,000 milliamp hours. And the other is that you're truly able to position the solar panel optimally toward the southern sky, no matter what direction or height you have that trail camera. Of the renders I've had out last year that were using fresh lithium AA's and the SP18, they still show 100% battery life. They should only ever really need to be drained if the panel itself winds up running out of juice. Then it starts to use those internal batteries. What's interesting is you can actually power the render on just the SP18 and no internal batteries. It's a little awkward to actually do in practice because the door blocks the 12 volt input here. So you have to turn the camera on, and of course nothing's gonna happen, then close the door, then plug in the solar panel, and then if you were to peek inside, the power actually turns on and the camera starts running. But Exodus recommends still having an actual set of lithium AA's or just any kind of AA's inside as a backup, and that's what I also do as well. But at $1.75 maybe on average per lithium battery, the SP18 would pay for itself after about 5 or 6 typical battery swaps. But the bigger thing for me is that I have the peace of mind to set the camera up now in, say, the summer over some community scrape and not have to worry about it dying in early October. The render is somewhat expensive at $335 list price. They do have an annual anniversary sale and a Black Friday sale. Like I mentioned, the solar panel is an optional $80 if you buy it at full price. It was relatively less expensive in the grand scheme of things a few years ago, but now these days you're seeing more and more lower price cell cameras hitting the market. So with all cell cameras, data plans and or the batteries are eventually what's going to cost you the most in the long run. With Exodus and their plans through the ScoutTech app, you pay a flat $7 line fee per camera, and then on top of that, you have a shared data plan across your whole account. It's tough to say what your needs will be. With 3 cameras, for me, I usually lived with the 100 megabyte or 250 megabyte plan per month for the hunting season, but I haven't come close to using that full 250 megabytes in any 1 month period. It's going to vary a lot. They have some estimates on their website, but keep in mind that HD downloads or video transmissions will use data faster. What's nice though is that you can kind of monitor that throughput throughout the month and just see how you're tracking and adjust it if necessary. If one camera is using a ton of data and the rest of your cameras aren't using that much, because it has that shared data plan, it doesn't really matter. And of course, you can't talk about Exodus without referring to their warranty and theft plan. You get a 5-year no BS warranty for manufacturing defects, and you also get 50% off replacements if your camera was stolen or it suffered accidental damage for the first 5 years. It's also worth mentioning that even though Exodus is a trail camera sales company, they also do put out, I feel like, a lot more good content than probably any other brand that I'm aware of, from best practices, tips, technology explanations, to even hosting a more standard podcast where they interview high-profile hunters. In conclusion, the biggest negatives on the render are the price, in my opinion. Even with that 5-year theft warranty factored in, it's still a pretty hefty initial investment, and there are some less expensive data plans out there as well. But it's also, on the flip side, a camera that has good reliability in my experience and pretty much does anything I could want a trail camera to do. So as such, I would typically choose a render to place in my more important spots where I really don't want to have to go in and try and fix something, or if a transmitted video clip, for instance, will give me a substantial value add over just a photo, since a lot of the other cameras out there might only give you the option to transmit photos. So I hope this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, and thanks for watching.